You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to The Spirit Dimension with your host, Kerry Greenaway, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Good evening and welcome to The Spirit Dimension. My name is Kerry Greenaway and I hope you've all missed me, being as I've had a week off. And tonight on The Spirit Dimension, we're dealing with a little controversial topic tonight, but I have two lovely gentlemen in the studio to help me with this one. I have the adorable CJ Symonds. Good evening, CJ.
Good evening, Kerry.
And we also have the lovely Kev Kerr. Good evening, Kev.
How you doing, Kerry? All right?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Now, as I said, we're dealing with quite a controversial one tonight, which is governing the paranormal. Now, people have tried and failed to do this, and whenever this topic comes up, it's always a very heavy debate, shall we say, about this one. So where do we stand with this one? I'm on the fence, I have to say. I think there are so many variables in the paranormal field. I think it's a very hard field to govern. So, CJ, what's your opinion on this?
Well, I agree with you, really, at the end of the day. The field is so big and there's so much diversity within it. And trying to govern, it'd be a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. It can be done, but it's going to take a lot of cooperation from a lot of groups and a lot of people. My own personal view is that I think it's going to be a long, hard road to actually get anything in place. But first, you've got to talk about regulation, because governance comes after regulation, and who we can work with to actually, that's existing now, that we could actually get to come in and see what's going wrong with the field. Because there's an awful lot that's going wrong at the moment. It's not a happy hobby to be in at the moment, is it, really?
It's a difficult hobby to be in at the moment.
Yeah.
So, Kev, what's your opinion? Do you think it could be governed?
Well, I think the most important thing is to think a lot smaller, whereas obviously we think, right, we're going to govern over the whole of the paranormal community, which, to be fair, you're probably going to get world peace a bit easier than you'd be able to do that. Because you're in a situation with so many belief systems, so many different ways of doing things, that I think personally you need to govern from quite a basic level first in order to achieve anything past that. So you need a good foundation that people have to come into as part of the community. And once that foundation's in place, then they can grow on that however they need to. But as long as that is solid, it's ethical, it's very, very confidential, especially when dealing with sort of residential things. Mm-hmm. And obviously with professionalism, that start can obviously evolve then until to something much bigger, which would only require a very small amount of change to make a massive difference.
Do you not think that's already been tried, though, at this point?
It has. So obviously with the ASSAP, they had the National Register. They still got the National Register of Paranormal Investigators. It gained a lot of traction, and then it lost a lot of traction. I think that was more down to the amount of individuals within the ASSAP and the kind of workload that came with it. That's usually due to the fact that they're all volunteers.
Yeah.
But what they obviously did is that they put that in place. And for those who don't know, the ASSAP is the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena. They are a charity. You pay a monthly membership to be part of that. At the same time, they offer training courses for investigations and for scientific method and things like that within the paranormal. But they also offer what's called the NRPI, which is the National Register of Professional Investigators, which I'm myself a part of. Obviously, most people within the ASSAP would go ahead and become part of that. But the issue being is obviously the community is very big and the ASSAP is not. So it becomes a struggle then to get things done with the volunteers that are doing things in their part-time to get those things in place. So the foundation is there. The ASSAP already do these things. And I know a lot of people will be shouting, what do they know? What's the point? Blah, blah, blah. But actually, what they're not doing anything. They're saying this is the best way to do it. They're saying, actually, this is the most ethical approach. And this is the not purely scientific, because a lot of people think the SSAP are complete scientific investigators. It's not possible within the paranormal to be a completely scientific investigator. You have to have a certain amount of flexibility. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping I'm not rambling too much here, but the training obviously would just give you a basic sort of look at how investigations work and investigation techniques. So this is when you're involved in sort of a residential point of view, and you go to someone's house, and you begin to learn what to look for, and you have the ASSAP behind you when you do that, so that you can make a phone call to them and they can advise what you need to do next if obviously you're stuck. People hide from the ASSAP because obviously the scientific aspect, but their course is about investigation and doing investigation right, and that can be used for events, that can be used for investigations, as I call them, which is obviously when you do what you call an investigation in a haunted location and you're using spirit boxes and K2s and that kind of thing. It's actually looking at how you can actually investigate properly and see what is happening. And that course is just a basic part of being in the ASSAP. So as I've said, that is in place. That is something that people can quite literally do right now. They can go onto their computer, they can log in, they can become a member, they can do all of that. What the ASSAP needs to do is up their game and basically get more people involved, which is a difficult thing to do because it's lost a bit of traction. But if they get more people involved, they also offer an advanced training which looks at more techniques and how to gain valid data and how to perform scientific experiments and put controls in place and things. It's not telling you what the paranormal is. It's not telling you what a ghost is. It's not telling you what poltergeists are. It's not telling you, that Sasquatch doesn't exist. It's not interested in any of that. It is purely a method basis. It's not there to say what's right and wrong. It's there to say this is how you should approach these things ethically and correctly, if you would like to. So that could start something. So the NRPI, the National Register of Professional Investigators, can be put into place, and people can have it, and they can be taken more seriously for what they do. So believers will probably be like, "Oh, I don't want to be involved in the scientific side." It's actually not. It's just a method. So to expand on that, I say I'm going on quite a bit, but it's kind of to make people realise that if the SSAP dug a little deeper and they start getting involved with these locations that rent out the location for teams who are having events and things, if they were also part of a different part of the NRPI, if that was possible, say if there's like a chair of the SSAP listening to this, they could implement something like a course for those locations that can say, oh, can I see your NRPI membership to prove that I know that you're ethically going to be doing this works in this location. So that becomes a governance in itself. It makes people almost have to go on the NRPI course in order to learn those basics, in order to be able to go to these locations.
Kev, can I ask you a question about these courses? How much do they cost?
Not a lot. I think it's like between £25 and £45.
And
so
they're held in different parts of the country.
Different parts of the country. So at the moment, obviously, like I said, the ASSAP have lost traction. So there's not as many courses that need to be on because there's not as much demand.
Right.
If the demand was there, obviously, I would assume that from the ASSAP that they would obviously put more on, because the more courses they do, the more obviously money towards the ASSAP, which then can go towards more training and so on. Like put more money into the system, basically. But these courses, I've done both. I also help and aid on the advanced training courses as well, and I tell you what, they're brilliant. They really are brilliant, and not to tell you that your belief system's wrong, not to tell you that ghosts don't exist, but to tell you that if you want to look for these things, how to look for it properly, how to gain the data, how to do an experiment if you feel a need for it, what to do when dealing with vulnerable individuals. It's all of this information makes a valid course, not a course on how to be a paranormal investigator, but how to be an investigator and how to do it ethically. And that's important. That is a very good start point for people. And as I sort of found, is if there was a few little extensions to what they do, so they actually go out to, you can have an NRPI membership as a paranormal investigator, you could have a NRPI membership to as an events runner, someone who's out doing these events. They work as their full-time job as going out and doing these events, but they need their NRPI membership in order to do that. The same way as they also would like location owner training, like I mentioned before, so they understand what they've got to ask individuals for if they want to use their location for investigations. So it's basically being just much more sensible and much smarter with what they're doing, and not just, being a bit of a laughing stock and there being lots of issues and problems with individuals, getting out of hand, because that NRPI membership could be disqualified from someone if they are found to be being unethical with what they're doing and found to be not paying locations and not paying, like giving people their money back if they've got refunds and things. So their NRPI membership can be taken away, and then they have to wait, say, a 6-month ban until they can go and get that back. And in order to get that back, they need to go and retake that exam.
Okay.
But how would you put that in place? Sorry, Kerry. How would that be put into place?
So, as I said, the foundation's already there for that system, for that, go through the training course, gain your NRPI, gain the card that shows you validly part of that. As a member, you do get a membership card, and it also runs out after a certain amount of time. So that needs renewing, which basically should be a sit-down exam again with the ethics, make sure everyone's up together, and then if you want, you can retake your training course, etc. But so that's already in place. That's there. But what it will be is more down to the work of the NRPI, not the NRPI, the SSAP, and the individuals who are going to these locations. So it's taken a few individuals to be more sensible and explain to these locations. This is if the SSAP put this in place. Go to that location and say, look, there's an additional layer that can protect you. It's part of this. It's, £20 a year or whatever the fee might be. But what it enables you to do is check if these individuals are registered under the National Register of Paranormal Investigators. If they are, you know that they've been vetted. You know that there's this situation. And most places, because it would cover them, would happily take that and say, do you know what? We make X amount a night from this. It costs us a fraction of that to ensure that we're covered and we have someone who we can go to if there is an issue, which would be the ASSAP. And in that situation, that will then spread, because the individuals who want these locations will be required to have NRPI, to be NRPI registered. The individuals who are in there to do an investigation, such as a team, will have to be NRPI registered. Everyone will have to have had a basic look at investigation, at ethics, at the real proper way of investigating, not just what we see on telly, a proper look at the safety side, the safety aspects, everything. That person has sat and learnt those things. It's no different from what you get in anything that happens out there, any professional level area, it's exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. One thing that comes up time and time again when this governing of the paranormal subject comes up is what gives somebody the right to hold that position above other people. What gives them, in a field that is not proven, in a field that's full of theories, in a field that's full of people that have been doing it for like 30, 40 years, what gives them the right to be a governing or part of a governing body?
So this is the way of looking at it. Is a lot of individuals go, well, I know best because I know what ghosts are because I've done it for X amount of time. Everything the SSAP do has nothing to do with that at all. It doesn't matter what people's theories are or anything else. You are still able to go into a location and sit there with your spirit box or sit there with your Ouija board or sit there and do anything else. You are improving the investigator you are. You are going and learning a situation so that if someone was in a group and you realise they might be vulnerable and the use of a Ouija board at that time may be very difficult for them, you are aware of that. You become aware of that because that's part of the basic thing you do as a paranormal investigator. So people turn around and say a lot, in these situations, like you said, they do turn around and they say, well, what gives them the right to be above us?
Yes.
No one is above them. No one. The SSAP are just there to ensure that people are doing things right, and when they do these things, they are taking into consideration the harm they can do to others. So it doesn't matter if you believe that a demon causes people to suffer with depression and cause suicides. Yeah. It doesn't believe if you believe that, or if you believe it's a mental health issue that can be sorted with tablets or anything else. It does not matter. It makes no odds what your belief system is. The best part is if you found or you come across someone who is in that situation, you know how to get them the right help. And that's what it is to know that they can go to a medical professional and they can go to that. You can bring the SSAP, or you'll know yourself after a few years of doing it that way, to get them to the right people, get them the right help, and you cause minimal harm when you do it. And it's not about I'm better than you or I know better than anyone else. This is a basic line for people to step on when they first start as an investigator, and they turn around to themselves and they say, I want to be taken seriously as an investigator. I want to ensure that I know all the ethics and everything else. Not I know what a ghost is. Not I know that EMF meters definitely talk to ghosts. None of it matters. None of it at all. It's just getting that first step right, and afterwards you can carry on doing all these things. You just have to be careful with things like residential investigations. You have to be aware that you have the ability to cause harm, and you have a duty of care to look after that individual.
I totally agree with that. Totally agree. The only problem that I foresee with it is the locations themselves. I mean, I do a couple of locations, and I know our locations would put the trust in us being there to ensure that everything that is needed to be in place would be in place. So, I agree and I disagree if that makes sense, because I think some locations will just want to do it to... At the end of the day, they're a business. They want money.
They want, plain and simple.
Plain and simple, it's money. And money plays a big element with it. And this field now is there's a lot of money to be out there. And a lot of locations, a lot of groups, or event companies, should I say, they make a lot of profit. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you could get the locations to cooperate, then all well and good. But I can't see it. I think you would get a few to come forward. But there again, would it just take a few to start to kick a bigger ball rolling?
Yeah, this is basically the situation. It would. Once the locations are asking for that membership, people will be required just to get in them. And people like yourself, who obviously the locations that you deal with and manage in that sense for these owners, you could have a situation where that owner is not required to go on that part of the NRPI course because he's delegated that duty to yourself. Yeah. So you then become your membership to the NRPI would not just be as an investigator, but also as a location owner or location manager, which means that you know to check for the NRPI registered situation that the people have been properly trained, and you're then able to take that away from that location owner. You know, it's exactly the same with Chris Howley at Woodchester Mansion. You know, Chris Howley is the paranormal supervisor at Woodchester Mansion. So it's not necessarily anyone else who deals with all of the paranormal side, but he would be required as that individual who is allocated by either the owner or the committee or anything else, that they have to be NRPI registered as a location owner, so they know to check that any individuals that are using it for an investigation are registered as an NRPI paranormal investigator or professional investigator. So that's how it will kind of work, and it's up to whoever deals with them to step forward and take the responsibility and say, you know what, there's a lot that can go wrong here, because people really underestimate the legal implications of if they just let someone into a location and that person broke their leg. You know, that person's in for a whole lot of money, and you're going to lose a lot of money. You know,
I mean,
and it's... Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Kevin.
No, it's all right, mate. I've nattered loads. So.
No, talking on the legal requirements, that is actually something that I wanted to bring to the table, because surely a lot of what we talk about in regards to governing the paranormal comes under the usual big business practice, whether you run a paranormal investigation company or you run a lift company. Surely, you know, a lot of what needs to be covered is covered under usual business practice anyway.
Yeah, 100%. This is, at the end of the day, and one thing people are mostly good at is obviously having their public liability insurance in place in order to carry these out. There are a lot of teams out there who aren't, you know, and it's up to, again, the same situation. It's up to that location to say, have you got your public liability insurance? Is it valid? If not, you know, F off, basically. You know, and it's up to them to do it, to protect themselves, regardless of protecting the individuals who are actually doing out there doing the investigations in their locations. It's their legal requirement, really, is to ensure they are insured against if something did happen. And with the build of the NRPI, once it's built into a very integral part of the general paranormal community, it's only then that you will ever have any kind of government body look at it and say, well, actually, yeah, this counts exactly the same as it would with any other business, and then put in place governance to say that someone can be fined or anything else within a situation.
I've been in a situation where, talking about insurances, where I check every group that comes down, either to the Jamaica Inn or to the Memo. We have we ask for their insurance and a copy of it. I was surprised to find out, after speaking to a number of other locations, that not every location actually does that, and I was really surprised. Mm-hmm. They were just producing an insurance certificate, but how do they know that that's a legit insurance certificate? And speaking from experience, I came across this, and what I do now, and what the Jamaica Inn does, we always ring up the insurance company to double check, about 30 days before they come along, just to finalise, to make sure. But I was astonished to find out, speaking to others who do it, that never actually did check the group's insurance to make sure they have got valid liability.
Just to assume it's okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
The thing with this is, it's not just about public liability insurance. There is you need to look at your tax requirements, self-assessments, company registration, that kind of thing. You need to look at PAT testing on electrical appliances. We all use. Mm-hmm. I say we all use. There are a lot of teams that use CCTV. Yep. That should be PAT tested. There's health and safety regulations. There are first aid regulations. There are outdoor temporary licences. If you're going to go and do a wood, we came across that at Epping Forest. There are risk assessments. There are, if you're providing a buffet, you need a food and hygiene certificate. There is so much more to this than, and this we're covering a very general viewpoint of the paranormal, but there are so many different areas that people work in regards to paranormal investigating that it's very, very hard to get to a point where we can govern all of that. Even under that course that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. With what the course would bring is an understanding of that requirement. If you are running events, you are taking members of the public into these locations, then fine, you are making money from what you do, and part of that money has to go into the costs of being able to do those things. So it's one of those situations where someone gets 600 quid a night in a location, for taking people around, then they have to have those things in place. They are a business in that sense. At the same time, there's also the other side, which is just to investigate. So if you're an investigation team, just going into a location to do an investigation, so you haven't really paid to go there, then there's no need for really the majority of that certification to do that. Is only once, obviously, it is a business side of things, which is obviously works with the event side. Mm-hmm. And if the ASSAP extend themselves to have that event section, where they're not governing events, but they're overlooking the start of these events or the starts of these teams, that can be put as part of the training course, so they understand what is required from them in order to be legally compliant, in order to ensure that everyone is safe, mm-hmm. in order to be able to do risk assessment. Risk assessment to come up in the general basic training course, but to actually go into a location and do a risk assessment and understand what's involved and all those special requirements for a certain location, all of that can be taught as part of the training course. And it's not something that is either right or wrong. It's right. It's legal. It's a requirement for that individual who's doing that. It's just someone is guiding those individuals instead of them going onto Google and going, what do I need, and taking any opinion. They will know the minimal legal requirements and they'll be able to teach that. And once they show that they have that card to say, I'm National Registered Professional Investigators under events, every location owner knows, that person knows exactly what's legally required. So if something does go wrong, that person can be put forward and named and said, right, hold on, you've caused this incident to happen. Or, fair enough, you put everything you needed in place. Mr. Owner, have you got everything you needed in place?
Why hasn't
so there's a level of accountability is where you're going with that?
Yeah, because there has to be. It's regardless, it will minimise the investigation into what happened on the investigation.
CJ?
I was just going to say, why hadn't ASAP put this into place already?
So with ASAP, they took, how many years ago was it? For probably like 5 odd years now. But basically, they started looking into a accredited investigation course, a paranormal investigation course. So whether it's was it EdXL or anything like that, they started looking into that a lot, and that was what they had a big aim to get that out there. But what the course was, and what a big issue that happened is, saying you are going to do an accredited course in the paranormal, as we know, makes it very difficult. But it wasn't actually for paranormal investigation. It was about scientific method and correct investigation techniques. So it wasn't about ghosts. It wasn't about anything else. But people went against it because they believed it was people telling them what is a ghost and what isn't. And that wasn't the case. The courses that they do they're not accredited. They're not.
Well, we know that there's no accredited courses. That is.
Yeah. That's it.
Let's be honest. No diplomas, no none of that, because
no, you can't.
They would be recognised.
You can't do any of it. So what it would be, because the reason I mention the SSAP is because they have that foundation in place. They have individuals working for them on a part-time voluntary basis. They have basically everything required to make that happen in place. The only issue they have is sort of a dwindling numbers, because they're seen as scientific, and any skeptic will tell you that any ghost page will get 20,000 likes in about 4 weeks. A skeptical page will have 10. Because people think, precisely, people will think that's they're trying to control them and tell them how it is, and it's like, well, actually, the SSCP don't do that. If they actually just went along and sat on this course and they thought, I'm going to do this because regardless it will make you a better investigator, to actually do it, it will be, I don't know, it will just make everything so much better for that individual. They are protected all of a sudden. They are able to rely on an entity behind them, not a literal ghost or anything, but actually the ASSAP behind them, if anything goes wrong, if they need advice, if they need extra investigators, if something actually does start flying around a room, they have everything in the background and the backup and support that they need to be able to do it. The accreditation shouldn't matter if the course is correct, but they're not teaching about what is a ghost and what isn't a ghost. They're just teaching you actual investigative, proven police techniques for witnessing, of taking witness statements and things. They're teaching you what to look out for. They're teaching you basic principles in regards to ethics and vulnerability and disability.
Is that where they've taken that from then? They've taken an extract from what the police do and stuff like that? So
basically that's the, I believe Mark, a very good member of the SSAP, he sits the course. He was a police trainer for taking witness statements and dealing with witnesses, and he conducts part of the advanced course. These aren't individuals who have just come up with the best slideshow they can. These are people who are very good at their professional jobs, which they rely on in order to obviously be able to do it. And once you do these courses, the advanced course is 2 days, I think. Yeah, the basics 2 days, and the advanced course is 2 days as well. Mm-hmm. And it is. I remember walking out, and I was already a skeptical investigator, and I remember walking out and thinking, this changes everything. Just from one basic course, 2 days, this changes everything. And it changed the way I thought about the paranormal world. It changed the way I thought about how I do things, and made me realise that I am accountable if I walk into someone's house and tell them, yes, all these delusions you are having is a ghost, and then leaving them to it, and then something serious happens where they commit suicide to try and attempt or anything else. That's me. I'm the responsible individual who caused that person to, say, lose their life or to end up in hospital. And once you realise that and you know that, you become a very sensible and very careful investigator. And if every individual within the paranormal community had to step over that line before they went ahead and did these investigations, there's no downside to it. Each individual will know how serious a situation they are in. Mm. There's another rant.
Well, Gray has asked. We've got the chat, as you can imagine, guys. The chat room is going absolutely crazy. So thank you, all of you, for coming into the chat room and putting your opinions forward. Gray has actually asked, who actually verifies this team? Who is actually behind this? You've named Mark. So who? Where has this course come from? You've said they're professionals in their field. Because they're all volunteers for ASAP, aren't they?
Yeah. So the most of the course is made up through actual scientific research. So it's actually not stuff that people have put together and gone, I believe that this is what that is. These are actual investigative techniques that are used worldwide by either the police force or investigators that are actually out there, like these guys who catch cheaters and things like that. It's that kind of investigation, which is exactly what we should be doing. That's what they're teaching. They're not teaching, like I said before, that, that isn't a demon and this is a demon and this is a pareidolia photo and this is a real ghost photo. There's none of that involved in it. It is just about techniques that are used in the field, in different fields, not just the paranormal field, in order to find out what has happened. And this is what people forget, is they turn around and go, well, who's qualified to say that? Who's qualified to do this? Well, to be fair, these techniques are easily available to us through Google. With these courses, they've actually gone and done the research and found the most important points which will make you a better paranormal investigator, and that don't tell you what is wrong and what is right. They tell you how it is legally and what is required to be done. I think I lost the question there and just went off on a tangent.
Oh, dear. It is one of those positions, isn't it? Who governs the governors? Yeah, quite frankly. Yeah. It's a very,
I think people are interested, Kerry, in where it all come from.
Yeah.
Where did it all start from? Where did, with all due respect to our Kev and all those who do put a lot of work into ASAP, where does it come from? You touched on it today that they use police techniques and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I'm like. I'm quite controversial, and I'll say it as I see it. I mean, ASAP I don't gravitate towards ASAP. Not that I don't want to be associated with it. It just doesn't, there's nothing grabbing me.
So
bring me into it at the moment.
So it's no surprise that the majority of paranormal investigators would want to stay away from the association of the scientific study of anomalous phenomena. One, there's a majority of investigators out there who don't want anything to do with science because science will disprove their belief system. And once someone disproves a belief system, their whole world changes. Their whole world view, the way they react, everything about a person changes if you change their belief system. Yeah. And so people don't gravitate towards the SSAP because they go, there's scientific investigators there. The SSAP don't investigate the paranormal. The investigators who go to the SSAP investigate the paranormal. The investigators who become the National Register of Paranormal Professional Investigators become the investigators that the SSAP will go to and ask them to go and look at a case if one comes in. You know, a lot of people don't realise that they can go to the SSAP for funding for experimentation within the paranormal world. All you have to do is explain what you need to do, write down what you're going to do, what you think your conclusion is, and what kit you need, and how much money funding you're going to require to do it. You can do that the same as you can with the SPR. You know, the money's there within the SSAP to do that. The problem is people see the word scientific and they run 10 miles in a different direction. Now, I've been to many conferences with the SSAP. I've talked to the conferences for the SSAP, and probably 20% of the individuals who are there would be what you would consider scientific. The rest are normal everyday investigators with varying belief systems, but we're taught, we're shown, and we know that when we're in an investigation situation, our belief systems do not count. Our belief systems are not there to affect the investigation outcome, to affect the data or anything else. That is what they do. They leave their belief system at the door, and then they switch on the investigator that they've been trained to be, and then they go to collect the data.
Mm.
So it's when you say scientific and the paranormal, you know, you might as well get spat on. People don't tend to do it. If anyone who ever listens to this wants to be a serious investigator and wants to do it properly, I would say go to the SSAP and get yourself booked onto a course, because they're not doing anything that is telling you what your belief system should be. It's just telling you how to do things better and much more ethically. Okay.
So, we've been asked a couple of questions in the chat. Oh my God, I'm losing track of what's being said in the chat room, to be fair. ASSAP is the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena. That is a well-known organisation, shall we say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The SPR is a Society of Psychical Research.
Yep.
The BPA, which is, in my view, a completely different ballgame, but that's my personal opinion, is the British Paranormal Association that is now no longer running, if I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
That's been shut down. There is something now called the National Paranormal Association, which, again, is, I think, pretty new and has come under a fair amount of criticism in its own right.
Yep.
Mainly because the main question comes up time and time again. Who governs the governors? Who gives them the right to tell us what to do in the field, basically?
No one's governors.
No one is.
No one is.
No one is. And this is the point. This is the point. Now, unfortunately, the ASSAP, I'm a member of.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately.
No. Unfortunately, I find, from a personal perspective, because they are run by volunteers, their resources are stretched in regard to customer service and communication.
Yeah, 100% agree with you.
And that's where they kind of fall down.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, no, I will 100% agree with that.
I'll tell you now, that's where it fell down with me right at the beginning when I started. That's where it fell down for me straight away with ASAP, to be quite honest with you, because I did contact them for help. And what I had back, I was horrified at. In fact, I had to go to somebody outside the field to actually ask them for their help. And they did brilliant. His name's Tim Brown from Pigs. You might have heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant group, brilliant guy, and he helped me because the response I got back from ASAP from sending in a picture, which I was a bit unsure about, I was new to it, wanted some advice, wanted some guidance, and all I got back in the email was, "There's nothing in this picture, thank you," and that was it.
There's nothing in this picture.
There is nothing in this picture. Thank you very much. And I did speak to Corinne about it because Corinne was on, yeah? She would tell you, I spoke to her. It was one of the things that really got my back up because I took the time to send a picture to them and I thought, okay, so it's going to sit there and look at it. They didn't sit there and look at it. They just wrote it off. And they just come back with that sort of response. And that started me off. Like, well, no, that's when I said I didn't gravitate towards it. There's nothing there that draws me for it because their communication is absolutely atrocious at times.
And this is unfortunately where we are finding a sticking point from people in the field who have approached organisations like this. This is becoming an issue. So this course sounds amazing, in my view. I think it sounds a fantastic idea. It's a great idea. However, if you can't even get through the basic first-line customer services perspective, how can you then have faith and trust in a course that they're putting on?
So it isn't about the faith and trust in the course. It's faith and trust in the SSAP. So I can 100% back up and say the course is brilliant. The course was made when the SSAP were very efficient and very good at what they did. And I will again agree that the communication process with the SSAP is an absolute nightmare. You know, with Team Impact, we're all NRPI, which technically makes us an affiliated SSAP group, but we've been trying to get affiliation for months and months and months, and we are more senior members in that sense. So I fully get that and appreciate that. The issue that within the SSAP is with, I think it was about a year ago, the main team, who have been dealing with the accreditations and everything else, switched and swapped and changed. The chair stood down and someone else jumped in. They basically end up in a situation where it's almost like a completely different group. But what's been happening recently is this sort of slow build-up and organisation of the SSAP so these things get dealt with in an actual timely manner, and the individuals who are doing it designate a certain amount of hours per week to do it. The more members you get, obviously, then you begin to get things like paid staff for the charity who would do more and more, obviously, towards it.
What sort of membership do they have in total, as a rough guess?
What's that in regards to?
In ASAP itself, its membership.
So what's available?
No, what sort of estimate, how many people are in ASAP? Would you know off the top?
I couldn't tell you.
It would give a good perspective.
I'd say probably close to 500 to 600.
500 to 600.
So yeah, active members.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do they have? How is it set up? Is there a ruling council?
Yeah. So basically, there's a group of individuals there's the chair, and then you've got the exec team who are, I think, 6 or 7 strong. I mean, it does vary and change at some points, and if anyone from ASAP is who's on the execs are in the chat room, feel free to completely correct me. But yeah, basically there's 6 or 7 individuals who work in a decision-making process. There's also an ethics committee who's made up of other individuals who will sit down with certain cases that might be ethically sensitive and sit down together and talk about what might be the best approach for the individual who's dealing with that investigation. And that's probably made up of very similar individuals who are in the actual group underneath the chair. So basically that's how the hierarchy works.
Okay.
And then under that is the administrators, the people who deal with events, the people who deal with the conferences, all those kind of people.
Okay.
But not one takes a salary.
Which is lovely of them, I have to say. Very few people in the paranormal field do take a salary. Yeah. In all honesty. Right, I have actually shared the ASSAP website into the chat room, so if you have any further questions on how it's run or what it's like, then I suggest you go and actually have a look at their website, because we're coming off the topic really of governing the paranormal, and we're concentrating really on the ASSAP, which is not really what we wanted to do. Although this course does sound quite nice, quite a good starter, like you said, to give you a good idea of the things you should be doing and the responsibilities that you should take in regards to investigating. Now, there is a huge mistrust. We've touched on this before. There is a huge mistrust in courses in regards to the paranormal world. What is your take on that, guys? Because you don't need a certificate or a diploma to do any of this work effectively, do you?
To learn anything.
No.
It's the same as buying an old Haynes manual to do your car. It's one of those situations that if you want to learn something, and you pick up a book and learn it. But what I think everyone forgets is that anyone can write a book. Anyone can write a blog. So we choose to believe who we want to believe. So the problem with that is I could write a book on investigations. I could probably write you a 10-volume book based on investigations, and different scenarios and how to deal with certain things. It's no need to say I'm right in that situation that you've learned from. There's nothing for me to go, I'm the best investigator in the whole entire world. There's nothing there for someone to ever make that claim. So when you sort of talk about a situation, I've totally lost my train of thought. What was I saying? What was the question again? Sorry, Kerry.
We're talking about trust in regards to courses. People are getting a bit fed up, really, with you can have a course for this and you can have a course for that, and so-and-so's written a course on this and that and the next, and there's that massive distrust.
I think, Kerry, also it's when some courses, online courses that you see on social media that put up saying come and do a diploma in the paranormal. Accredited courses, as we all know, there is no such thing with it. That's the thing that really annoys me, because it's these type of individuals, or be what it is, a company or somebody off to make a fast buck. Because at the end of the day, you get somebody who's new to this, they see it and they think, oh great, I'll get that. They'll pay God knows what else for it. And you might as well just rip up that bit of paper that you get at the end of the day, because it's not worth the money it's written on.
That's... All courses will give you a good basis of knowledge. Whether or not that's right or not, that's up to you to go and research that. But when we talk about governing...
Wouldn't be diploma, would it?
No.
It wouldn't be diploma, and it wouldn't be accredited. When they're advertised as diploma and accredited, that's wrong. That's misleading, because it's not.
I think you find that in a lot of different fields, though, not just the paranormal.
Oh yeah, no, it's right throughout. But I mean, it's quite common within the field now at the moment. And I see it on my timeline all the time. Yeah. Come and do this course and come and do that course, and it is so misleading, because people that don't know or wouldn't know better would think they're getting some sort of accredited course, which is saying that they've done this, they've done that. And so they're an investigator. At the end of the day, it's knowledge, isn't it, really? It's learning the basics.
It certainly is. So if we're going to try and pull the field together under a governing body or a association that people can adhere to certain, as we said right at the beginning of the show, ethical practices, professionalism, education, solutions, respectful discussion, amongst the things. That's the key base point, isn't it? That's where we're trying to get to with this. It's not about somebody being better than another person. It's about having a good basic starting knowledge where you all come from the same perspective without a belief system in place to do an investigation under however you do that, because there are, like we said again, there's so many variables in the field, so many people do it in different ways. There are public investigations, small teams, individuals, there's home investigation, private investigations, there's all sorts of different manners. We covered this in a different show of types of investigation, and I think we got up to about 6 or 7 different types of investigation that you can do. So what we're actually looking at when we start looking at a basic governing body of the paranormal is not actually about telling you, you go and do this and that's how you do it and you can't do it any other way. It's about bringing those basic ethical practices into place. So you are covering yourself from a legal perspective. You are covering yourself in regards to just knowing basically what equipment is and how it works. You are looking at what you need to know to cover yourself if you're going into a private investigation. So you are being responsible. And that's where we're going with this, isn't it? We're not talking about people dictating to other people, but just start a good basic starting point for everybody in the field that's respected as well, a respected body, where you are held accountable if something does go wrong. And if you've adhered to the basic practices, then you have somebody to cover your back, basically. Because if you've adhered to those basic practices, then you can go to that person and say, well, we did this, we did that, we did this, we can prove it because we've got CCTV, we've got this, we've got that, the other. And then there becomes that level of accountability.
Yeah.
If something went wrong.
I mean, talking about, going back to this governance of it, I think really what we've got to do is realistically, in my opinion, it's just my view. So it is to look what's already there. I mean, there's a lot of agencies out there that really could be doing a hell of a lot more. Because when you're talking about governance, the governance covers the whole of the paranormal if you're going to have good governance. But to have that, you've got to have that regulation. And really, I think when things go wrong within the field, there isn't. There's a lot of groups that come together, a lot of associations you can go to, but none of them have got teeth. So none of them can really do anything about it. So really, we have to look at what's there, what's available. And I suppose one of the biggest things that have come to light over the last 2-3 years is fraud, where people are being ripped off. Now, really, to me, I would want to put all my efforts into working alongside things such as the police fraud department. I don't know what you would call them. I think they've got a dedicated fraud squad, haven't they, or something, working with these people to highlight the issues that are going on within the field, using what's already out there and unavailable to us. And then from that, bringing it all together and then really attacking the situation of getting some proper regulation in place. And then comes your governance to actually govern that regulation. Because at the moment, there's nothing there to govern, really, because there's even if we go to, as Kev said about, with ASAP as such, has ASAP got any teeth to do anything about anything?
But that's exactly what I mean by the expansion of it. The teeth, the power of it becomes from the requirement to have that NRPI ticket. It comes from them needing to have that, but if they've got a 6-month bar in place because they've been found to be unethically doing investigations or events, and they've had that ticket taken away, and those individuals who are running those locations have checked, and actually, you've been barred for the last 6 months, blah, 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 then you can't obviously use our location. And then that individual is now stuck. They can't do anything that they wanted to do in the paranormal anymore because without that ticket in place.
But that's bearing in mind some of the other locations adhere to it.
But this is exactly what I'm saying. It's because we are never going to have any kind of actual governments over the whole paranormal. Like I said at the beginning, it's not going to happen. It's impossible. Yeah. If we could have that, we'd have fucking world peace. Plain and simple every time.
You did so well up to that point.
I know. I think I've done really good into it. It will never happen because at the end of the day, someone believes ghosts are not real. Other people believe ghosts are real. And if the people who believe ghosts real, ghosts could be 10 different things, and everyone has a varying belief system right the way through. They will not sit down and agree. Even if we found that ghosts are real and we proved it, but it's different from what people thought a ghost should be, they will still argue it. we are never going to get away from that. We are never going to be able to sit down at one table and eat the same food. It's not going to happen. What we need to do is look at, like I said, the basic principles of ethics, the basic principles of investigation, that everyone, as Kerry was saying, once we all start on the same foot, we can go back to that area when we need to. We don't need to argue the toss at each other continuously about anything. When someone in the field is doing something wrong, we could go back to one place, which, whether it's the SSAP or anywhere else, one place that can turn around and go, oh, well, under us, you've using this, and this. That is now taken away from you because it's down to us to protect everyone else. Sorry, that's it.
But that's providing you get, as I said, the locations, you get the other
It's not going to happen overnight.
No.
It's
going to be an uphill fight all the way.
Yeah,
I can tell you.
But at the moment, what is it like? What is it like day to day in the paranormal? We fight for nothing. Like, absolutely no. We argue between each other. We do all this research. We do all this stuff for absolutely fuck all.
Yeah,
we are doing it day in, day out. We are doing it every weekend. We're going to do these investigations. We're putting our time, we're putting our money, we're putting our effort, we're putting blood, sweat and tears, and we are getting nothing out of it.
No.
And unless we change, we will be doing in 100 years' time, same way as it was back in the Harry Price time, because it's all the same, we will be absolutely F all out of it.
I mean, I'd be interested in taking part in an association, to be honest with you, that would think well outside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an inside box bloke. I like to think outside of the box. And at the moment, nothing's ever took my attention to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
And I like what I hear, and I don't disagree with it, because, if I disagree, I'll disagree. You know what I'm like. But at the end of the day, I can't fault what is being said. It's just that I think there's a big perception out there when you use the word governance. There's a lot of people out there that will look at it and have different aspects of what they think governance is.
And almost feel like they're being controlled.
Yes, exactly. And to be quite honest, I was involved with it for quite a few years, and it did my head in. So at the end of the day, it is a huge, huge job to do. And good luck to whoever takes it up. Because if you imagine in front of the three of us now, for want of a better word, Kerry, a cauldron, and you take all the ghost hunting groups and you place them ghost hunting groups in that cauldron, that would fill that cauldron. Then you add, say, use for better word, semi-professional groups, if you want to use it that word. Where they'll go out as teams, investigate stuff. You put all them in, they mount in the hundreds. There are thousands of groups out there. You then chuck in that cauldron, the skeptical side of it. You can't leave out the event groups as well. They have to go in. And really, when you think about it, so would these TV programs to a certain extent, although they are governed to a point, I believe, to what they can and cannot do. But then you need to put a little bit of spice in there, and that spice, you're going to get conflict, you're going to get diversity, and at the end of the day, whoever wants to go and taste from that pot, good luck to them, because that's one hell of a mix to try to govern. And you're going to have lots of people coming from different areas that will see the governance different to them. And, I really, the only way to do it is to get it's to go along the lines of trying to formulate, I don't know, call it a committee, call it whatever, and actually approach the other agencies that are out there and ask them for guidance and help as well. Because you're actually highlighting there is a current problem going on within the field.
Okay.
You're never going to get rid of conflict. That's for sure. You will never get rid of conflict. The BPA tried it. I mean, I was involved with that. So was Grey Rudd involved in that right at the beginning. That had good intentions, but it went astray. Because at the end of the day, you always find one word that comes into it: parapolitics.
And there's a whole different topic.
And that is a different topic.
And on that note, before we go down that little rabbit hole, We have actually come to the end of the show. I just want to give a huge shout out. Thank you guys in the chat room. Thank you so much. I've been watching your comments go by, and I hope we've managed to cover the salient points that you've been bringing up. Even if I didn't mention your names, I'm going to do it now. So we had Karen, we had Richard, we had Kaz, we had Gray, we had Steve Alcott, we had Paul, we had Keith Ely, we had Rob Lee, Hijack Radio Girl, thank you so much for joining us all the way from the US of A. John Fraser, Ashley Nibb, Graham Smith, thank you guys so much for your input. Hopefully, we've kind of given a little bit of a different viewpoint on what governing the paranormal would be. And on that note, thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure. Great discussion.
Thank you.
Enjoyed that one. Tomorrow evening, roughly around 6 o'clock, I reckon, I'll be going live on the Parasearch Radio group page to give you a roundup of all of this week's shows coming up. If you've missed any of our shows, don't forget we are Parasearch Radio on YouTube. Pop over there, give us a little subscribe, like, comment, share if you so desire. And we will be back tomorrow evening, 9 p.m, right here on the Spreaker channel with the Parasearch Radio Encore show. I've lost track now. The Parasearch UK Radio Encore show is where I'm going with that one. Thank you guys so much once again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, it's been a pleasure being on. Thank you.
And on that note, guys, we bid you a very farewell.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.